So I want to share my thoughts with you. Regarding marriage, relationships. I know in every relationship there are issues. There are, of course, disagreements. Duh. But there's also in relationships, laughter, joy. So many positive things. But it's sad that a relationship can deteriorate to the point to where divorce happens. And I said in many videos that there's so many things that can take the focus off each other, and one of them being finances. And it was never God's intent. He said, "What God has brought together, let no man separate." But it's not only man in itself; it's it's the focus. When your focus is no longer on your spouse, and it's similar with God. When we don't focus on God, then the flesh comes in and we start doing things according to the flesh. But in marriage, it's said by Paul that if a man is so focused uh, on other things, this is my paraphrase, focused on other things, how can he please his wife? And it's the same for men, that when we don't focus on God, how can we please him? With our actions, with the right kind of heart. So, you know, how many marriages fail not only because of finances, but because the focus is no longer on the spouse? When work becomes the priority, when other things become the priority other than your spouse, then, like I had said earlier, is the marriage can deteriorate. But, you know, we see Hollywood, we see, two people fall in love, supposedly, and then less than a year or a year later, or maybe a couple of years later, they divorce. And they divorce because, I don't know, good majority is unreconcilable differences. You can't work things out. You can't, because of bitterness on each party, because of the focus on the hurts. You can't reason things out. But, how is it that Christians can follow the same way as Hollywood? They divorce because unreconcilable differences. We're supposed to have love as first priority. We're to work things out under God. If you can't communicate with your spouse, then there's an issue there. We should be able to sit down and work differences out maturely. Not taking the immature route and say, I'm not getting what I want in this relationship, so I'm just going to end it. That is not what we do as Christians. We're to be the lights of the world. The light so that people can see. We should be the examples for the world to see. Where, we're operating in the love of God, with each other. Not letting anything come between that love. But, it's just so sad that, man can hold on to the standards of this world rather than God's standards. That's just, it really bothers me that, even Christian couples can divorce for any and every reason rather than taking the initiative in God and work everything out. That's what God intends. You know, you first fall in love with somebody, you talk and you fall in love with them, and you can talk things out. You talked about your past relationship, how that didn't work out, and you end up finding yourself on the phone with them for hours. And so many things come in that relationship that it's no longer talking things out. You know, it, we have to be lights in this world. And I'm not saying that I have it all together, but I think what really bothers me is the fact that Christians can take the example of the world, and have a lack of love for each other. We're not to do that, you know? I mean, there's so many other things that can take the focus off a couple, and it should never be. You know, just having, you know, that communication with each other. Is it possible? That you know, I've always heard that, when you're talking things out, you know, one person could hear the wrong things. And so they go with it, they become bitter, and they don't want to talk. And I've heard, and regarding like women, they're, expressing, maybe their disappointment at their job. So, it's a man's heart to want to save his partner, to help his partner. And so, in his heart, he wants to save her, but he wrongly tries to give her advice on what she needs to do. That's not what she's looking for. Men do that in relationships. We talk with each other, to get advice. I would talk with my brothers, and they would give me advice and it helps me. Well, that's not how men and women communicate. Women share their day, what they're going through, and all they want is a guy to listen. They're not looking for advice unless they're asking for it. And I think with so many relationships is, if you're hearing something wrong in a relationship, you feed back to your partner what you're hearing. Said, this is what I heard. Or do you mean this? And you're giving your partner the chance to clarify it so that you can talk it out. I think a lot of couples is that they refuse to get to that place to where they really communicate that. So one thing after another is built upon the negative, and it drives a wedge in between the relationships to where you can't talk with your partner about anything. And then comes divorce. And, like I had said, many other things take the mind and the focus off, the love between spouse. And that's what Jesus pointed out. The Pharisees went to him and it said, can we divorce our wife for any and every reason? And he said, what does the law say? And that's what they said. And he said, well, the reason for your divorce is because of your hard-heartedness. And it wasn't like that at the beginning. That's the key point. Hard-heartedness. We allow ourselves to become hard at bitterness, at the negative in the relationship. And it gets to the point to where we no longer want to work things out with each other. We just end it. And we, instead of being lights in this world, we're taking the advice from the world. We're doing what the world does. And, the Hollywood divorces, so, Christians do it too. How many relationships in the church are like that? Instead of the couples taking the initiative and being lights in this world, they follow what the world does, So I wanted to share that with you. That was just something that I seen that has bothered me. There's just so much of the world in the heart of Christians. And there needs to be a refocus. We need to be lights in this world, doing what God wants us to do, having the integrity to go along with it instead of more emphasis on the worldly ways of doing things, more emphasis on finances rather than holiness and loving each other the way we're supposed to. So thank you for taking the time to watch.